Oh, my alarm's going off. It's time to record Vaguely Scientific. I better call Jim on this antique rotary phone to tell him I might be late. Oh no, there's no answer. Wait, the ground is shaking. Is this some kind of earthquake? No, that's the sound of some large vehicle coming down the road, and helicopters off in the distance. Oh no, a rogue military faction is coming after me, trying to put a stop to all the work at the lab. They're opening fire. I better run out the back door and dive into this well for cover. Ah! Oh, wolf. Oh, man. Where am I now? Oh, it's echoey in here, but fortunately, the minecart in this secret tunnel leads straight to our underground laboratory in the Ozarks. The tracks are screeching and the minecart is picking up speed, and listen, there are bats flying out from the tunnels as the wind picks up. Oh, good, it looks like I've made it just in time. Yeah, that one will be fun when Jim puts all the sound effects in there.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
It's just going to be silent.
It's just going to be completely silent. I am Derek, and I just had a harrowing ordeal. Joining me as always is Jim, who's recovering from a frightful event. Hi, Jim.
My heart rate is elevated.
And after a rather perilous journey, Sierra is with us again. Welcome back, Sierra.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. And this is a show where listeners send in questions to hear our vaguely scientific answers, and who knows, we might even get some of those answers right. But before we do that, it's time for the fun science fact of the day, Jim.
All right. I think this is really neat. Helium has the lowest melting point of any element at 0.95 Kelvin. And just as a reminder for all of those who do not know what Kelvin is the scale where 0 is just absolute 0. So helium melts at like 1 degree Kelvin. And then its boiling point isn't much higher. It's 4.2 Kelvin. So helium is basically a gas out of the gate.
All right. So because I know this about nitrogen and I know this about oxygen. Are we capable of making liquid helium?
We have. It does not stick around for very long, and it has some really weird properties. Like it will climb up the walls of containers and stuff.
Neat.
Yeah, it's odd stuff. It's kind of cool.
Well, it would be very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So are you saying it's like the goo from Venom? Like it just crawls up walls?
Kinda, except it's clear. They should make a clear Venom.
Interesting.
They should make. That would be
chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I did not know that. I never really thought about solid or liquid helium before, and that's neat. But with the science fact of the day out of the way, we should probably move on to one of our questions for the week. And
why not?
I'm very excited for dumb reasons about this question. Because question 1 this week comes to us from Lewis Carroll. Why is a raven like a writing desk?
Why is a raven like a writing? What is with the audacity of this raven to be like a writing desk? It should know better. Ravens are smart. They're corvids.
I want to tell you why I'm excited to talk about this question, because this question captivated the world in much the same way we've attempted to do with this show back in the 1800s. So this is a little bit of history, I guess. This is from Alice in Wonderland. The Mad Hatter asks Alice, why is a raven like a writing desk? And when Alice asks him, Alice says, no, I don't know why. And he says, I don't know either. He was just asking. And then Alice says, I think you might do something better with the time than wasting it asking riddles that have no answers. And from that point on, people wrote letters and approached Lewis Carroll, always asking him what the actual solution to the riddle was.
Oh.
And In an 1896 edition of Alice in Wonderland, there is a foreword in which Lewis Carroll says, "Inquiries have been so often addressed to me as to whether any answer to the Hatter's riddle can be imagined that I may as well put on record here what seems to me a fairly appropriate answer, vis-a-vis because it can produce a few notes, though they are very flat, and it is never put with the wrong end in front. This, however, is merely an afterthought. The riddle, as originally invented, had no answer at all." And that is the official response from Lewis Carroll. And an interesting note about that is that the first time it was printed, the word never was spelled Nevar, which is raven with the wrong end in front, is raven spelled backwards.
Oh.
And in future editions of the book, some editors looked at that and didn't get the joke and figured, oh, this was a mistake we have to correct. And it always appears spelled never correctly.
Interesting.
So yeah, they just didn't get it.
Don't you hate when editors don't get the joke?
It's really telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is interesting because people have put forth answers to this for years since, and there are like collections of people's answers in Sam Lloyd's Cyclopedia of Puzzles, published in 1914. There are a few like reader submitted answers. The notes for which they are noted are not noted for being musical notes, is an answer. Poe wrote on both is one of them. And then bills and tales are among their characteristics. So bills as in paying bills and tales as in telling stories. Both have quills dipped in ink. That's kind of neat.
I like that.
Yep. And because they both slope with a flap. That's a stretch.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I have a guess, like a writing desk at the time, maybe like a roll top desk or something has a lid, so it has a flap.
Those older versions where it kind of curves over.
Yeah. And so these ones are kind of fun here. So because one has flapping fits and the other fitting flaps, kind of on the same line here, because one is good for writing books and the other better for biting rooks. And similar to that, because a writing desk is a rest for pens and a raven is a pest for wrens.
Wrens, like W-R-E-N?
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
And here's my last historical one. This is one I've actually known since I was a kid. That is just what I thought was the actual answer. But it was originally coined by the author Aldous Huxley. The answer: why is a raven like a writing desk? Because there is a B in both and an N in neither. And I like that because it doesn't actually answer the question, but it fits the nonsensical Alice in Wonderland story. There is a B in the word both, and yeah. See, it's a trick answer. There's actually an N in both raven and writing desk.
That does sound like something
I can tell that
Aldous
Jim
Huxley would say.
Jim was about to call it out. He was like, no,
that's
there's an N
incorrect.
in
You got that backwards.
Yeah. No, I get it now.
It's a riddle, obviously, so there's going to be some kind of like pun involved if there were an answer. But I think this is interesting to talk about because there are similarities to any two random objects, even if it's as metaphysical as both exist. So like it reminded me of the expression apples and oranges, which has always bothered me because the idea of that expression is you're comparing two things that are not the same, but like apples and oranges are actually really similar. I mean, they're both fruit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
They're both sweet, sugary, delicious.
Yeah.
But one of the things I was looking at was writing desks.
Okay.
And the first thing that struck me was that there are a lot of black writing desks.
Interesting.
And ravens, famously, are birds that are black.
It's almost as if a lot of writers just really like things to be black.
Yeah, because when you spill a pot of ink on it, it won't show.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's why. I thought it was because they were all dark and brooding and edgy.
Oh, no, because, like, C.S. Lewis isn't dark and brooding and edgy, I don't think. I don't know.
Ravens are super edgy.
Yeah, that's true. There was a raven in Super Mario World 2. It was one of the bosses, and it was... well, it wasn't actually very edgy. I don't know how I thought I was going to make that work, but it's very cute. It's just like a sphere with little feet and a beak. It's actually not edgy in the slightest. So
I think the birds themselves are not edgy. I think it's a very, it's an iconic symbol of like the goth counterculture. Mm-hmm. So like people who like
that's
ravens
how ravens are like writing desks. Is that the goth counterculture is the one doing all the writing.
Yeah. I think the two best things that I came up with for if I'm going to compare ravens with writing desks is they have legs. If it's like a Victorian kind of writing desk, which for whatever reason, that's where I'm going in my head, they have like long, thin legs, and they also tend to have feathers on them. Because a quill would be sitting on a writing desk.
Yeah.
You said they both have feathers, kind
of. But yeah, that's a stretch.
I think one of the things that's important to remember about this riddle is that it was riddled at a time where we didn't have things like computers or ballpoint pens. Actually, I don't know about that. I don't know when the ballpoint pen was invented. Let's Google this real quick.
Okay.
It's important to know.
The ballpoint pen.
I'm going to guess 1910.
19th century. Oh, interesting. The first patent was issued on October 30th, 1888.
Oh.
Which does still post-date Alice in Wonderland, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it seems like it does.
Okay. So, like, I mean, a lot of the things that I was thinking about that were, like, still joke answers, which I don't really think you can really give like a real answer to this, obviously.
Right.
But like a lot of my joke answers were like, well, that doesn't work in the context of the riddle because they didn't have a lot of these things.
They didn't have a lot of these. My main joke answer was trying to genuinely answer the question, and I think that's as far as I got was with they both have legs.
Mm-hmm. That's not a bad answer though. It's true.
Yep.
They both have a flat surface on which you can write something if the raven will let you. You can probably, like you know how like when you get something delivered to your house and they make you sign the receipt and you have to like slap the receipt against your door frame and like sign it. Like in theory, you could do that on a raven's beak if the raven wouldn't maul you.
Which is a stretch.
A stretch.
I'm going to Google how aggressive are ravens.
I think fairly, but I don't want to be quoted, I guess.
I'm kind of curious about that, actually. Yeah.
Ravens are not ravens are... So the weird thing about ravens is there's not, as far as I understand, a specific bird that is actually a raven. It is like it's a more broad term for a lot of just basically black corvids.
Okay.
So I was about to say ravens aren't like as smart as crows, but like some people call the American crow a raven.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, it says they're very intelligent and social, so they may exhibit aggressive behavior when fighting. But humans are occasionally attacked if they get close to a raven nest, though serious injuries are unlikely. So it just seems like they're not intentionally aggressive, but if they feel threatened.
Like if you went and slapped a receipt on its beak and tried to sign for the tip, then it probably would attack you.
Yeah, but so that's not why a raven is like a writing desk, because I've written so many notes on a writing desk and they don't care.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that if the raven let you, you could write on a raven.
Oh, I see. So you're physically capable of it.
Yeah. There is like if you gave it just the right amount of horse tranquilizers, as I tend to like to say every once in a while.
I hope you're not giving it even a full dose.
It would have to be a very small amount of horse tranquilizers, yeah.
Be very small.
Don't worry, he's only giving it a half dose.
Ravens are not Jim, ravens are not big animals.
They're not horses, for starters.
They're not horses.
I don't know if they make raven
First off.
tranquilizers. You can't just go buy them.
I don't even think they make bird tranquilizers. I think it's just, I don't think they distinguish by the different species.
Why are
Right,
we
yeah.
tranquilizing these birds? I don't
So you
understand.
can use it as a desk to write on.
It's for science.
It's for science. Oh, darn.
You know, now that I'm looking
Yeah.
at a picture of a raven, I will say another way that it is like a writing desk, and maybe this is something that you did say, but there were a lot of like semi-serious answers kind of mixed in with like funny answers as well.
Mhm.
But like a raven is definitely sort of like broader one direction than it is another. So it's like rectangular if you stretch its wings out. And in much the same way that a writing desk is rectangular all the time. Unless you have like a square writing desk.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, the sloped answer, what I was picturing is if you look at the side of like a roll top desk, you could easily make that look like the hunch of a like you could decorate the side of a desk to look like a raven.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, is there so there's like secretary birds, which are not ravens, and there are secretary desks. Is this
Ooh.
anything? Is there something here?
Why
Because
is,
if there is, I don't know
there.
it yet.
is the secretary bird a black like a black
Well,
corvid?
let's see. I don't think so.
Secretary bird.
Oh, these are very much
Nope.
not corvids.
Nope, they are.
They're pretty.
That's
I
like
like this bird.
Looks like a bird of prey, probably.
Yeah. This is another one of those kind of birds that I believe did not forget that it was dinosaur.
None of them forgot that
What
they
a-
were dinosaur.
What other animals do you think did not forget that they were dinosaur, Jim?
Cassowaries did not forget that they were dinosaurs. Cassowaries are scary. Yeah, these are, let's see. Diurnal bird of prey, eagles, vultures, kites. Yeah, secretary birds are not, this is nothing, but there are secretary birds and secretary desks.
Well, but that's not a writing desk. That's a secretarial desk.
Yeah, but I think you can write on a secretary
Well,
desk.
yeah, but you could write on a raven.
Yeah,
So
Technically, you could, yes.
there are many surfaces
Just-
on which you could
just
write.
because it's called a writing desk doesn't mean it's the only thing you can write on.
Oh, you know how else they're like the same thing, a raven and a writing desk? Is they both start with an R sound, even though writing starts with a W technically,
Right.
but you ignore the W.
Right.
So they're both R sounds at the beginning.
They are also made of organic material.
Yes. Things that were currently or once living.
Yeah.
Assuming you have a wooden writing desk.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you could be a metal writing desk, I suppose.
They also have like those plastic what do you call it? Like the resiny.
I don't like those ones.
I think it depends on what they're decorated with, because there's some really cool things you can do with like resin desks. Now, another thing I was thinking about is storage.
Oh,
You can, I mean, not you personally, it would be a challenge, but like there are probably ways you could put something into a raven. If you hide some kind of secret message in its food and maybe like some kind of indigestible capsule, they would just poop it out the other end someday.
Are ravens one of those birds that can deliver messages?
I don't
I don't
think
know if they-
so.
well, and
Yeah, I didn't.
yeah,
wasn't
because
sure.
the first thing that comes to mind is Game of Thrones and how they used to always say, "Send a raven with a message," and I used to always
Oh,
be
you're
like,
right.
I always used to be like, why not pit? And that's where it's like, because ravens are edgy and brooding, and I'm like, but they're not messenger birds.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not actually positive about that.
I mean, they figured it
Oh,
out
no.
in Game of Thrones.
What happened, Jim?
I Googled, can you send messages using ravens? And the first result was a Reddit Ask Historians thread. It was like, how are ravens trained to deliver letters from town to town? And the first the reply that came up like on the Google search was, you
Yeah.
should take a break from watching Game of Thrones. Ravens were never used to deliver letters.
That's what I was saying. Like,
Didn't you know
and-
Game of Thrones is historically accurate?
I
Yeah.
mean, that is, yep. And we never know exactly
sure.
how it ties into actual history because the books are never finished.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true.
It's such a shame that George R. R. Martin was unable to finish the series before his untimely passing.
Because now we don't know how did Alexander the Great come around? Where?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I did say untimely, but isn't he like 80?
George R. R. Martin?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I don't think he's that old.
Oh, Google this now.
This is great. This is great audio content. All this Googling.
75.
He's-
Okay.
Yeah.
That's almost 80.
Okay.
He's doing well.
Well, depends what he's doing because he's not writing very quickly.
I mean, like,
well,
living wise, he's still with us at the moment.
he's,
As of recording,
Oh.
I should say.
as of recording. Oh, now you've jinxed it.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna say if George R. R. Martin dies before this episode comes out, we just cut this.
Yeah,
whole
I think
thing.
that's probably why. Another way that I was thinking about ravens and writing desks being similar is that both of them conjure images of a time before modern time. Like like when I think of a writing desk, I do think of like an Alice in Wonderland time period, like the mid 1800s, because like I don't own a writing desk. I own a desk that I can use to write on, but
Mhm.
it's not like singled out for that function. Its primary purpose is to just be a desk. It's not my writing desk.
right.
Well, because now we have computers.
Yeah, exactly. Ravens still exist, but like they also make me think of Poe, which is contemporary in a way.
Does that mean that computer birds are like computer desks?
I think you're thinking of drones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we call them.
Yeah.
Computer birds.
Or if you're in the birds are not real cult, then same.
Yeah. Hey, if birds are not real, then ravens are like writing desks in the sense that you could use them to put a computer and use Microsoft Word to type out a document. Because one would assume fake bird drones run some kind of operating system that you could hijack to install a copy of Word or whatever word processing software you tend to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say if birds are not real, then they're a lot more similar to writing desks.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that's completely irrelevant to where we are now. And it wasn't relevant to what Jim said when he said it, but I've been thinking about it and I just want to say it out loud so that it's out there.
Go back to something irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's back to something irrelevant. Sounds like a Monty Python sketch. So Jim, when you said I was thinking about storage,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
This is what happened in my brain. I went immediately. My response was going to be, we're not talking about elephants, Jim. And the reason is because in my brain, when you said I want to talk about storage, the only possible thing I could think of that you were going to say was that they both have trunks. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but that's what happened in my head.
I don't know why, but as you doubled back on this thing that I forgot I even had brought up, it made me think of, like, you know how in a lot of giant robot anime, the robots, their chest cavities will open up and they'll fire a bunch of missiles?
Sure.
Just imagine a raven doing that. It's not pertinent to anything, but I want you to imagine it, please.
Oh, well, that's another way that they're similar to writing desks in that
They don't have missiles in their chest?
They don't have missiles in their chest.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going based off of things they don't have, then
Yeah.
yes, they're very similar.
They're similar.
Yeah.
Neither of them are elephants.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither one of them.
Is easy. This is an easy.
Yeah,
question.
neither one of them will win the Monaco Grand Prix anytime soon.
Well, you don't know that.
That's true. Well, the problem with a Raven racing in the Monaco Grand Prix is that the cars are designed for, an approximately 6 foot tall human, and Ravens probably couldn't reach the gas pedals.
Yeah, but what if they were racing? Because they're not as fast as a race car, right? Like if they were flying.
Also true. Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
But as the Raven flies, that track is much shorter.
Yeah, well, it could just like literally fly in a circle around the finish line.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Which
saying.
so could the cars.
Well, not in Monaco.
Oh,
They
okay.
can't. Yeah, there's too many walls there.
This has gotten very silly.
I expected nothing less.
Yeah. This isn't a super scientific question, so
We got there.
It was a more
Yeah.
literature history question, which I'm here for.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think perhaps we should move on because we do have a second
Oh.
question. Go ahead.
They are featured heavily in like fantasy settings. Because I feel like writing desks are the kind of thing you hear about in like Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
where somebody sits down and writes a missive and sends it by Raven, apparently.
One of the things I had written down is if you compare them like in a metaphorical sense, they are both often used to invoke, like you said, fantasy or intellect.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. There are genuine answers to the question. They're
Mhm.
they're just not as fun, I guess.
Mhm.
So before we move on to our second question this week, there is one more order of business because now it is time for...
Today in science history.
On July 3rd, 1987, Richard Branson and Per Lindstrand became the first people to pilot a hot air balloon all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. It's worth noting that a manned helium balloon crossed the Atlantic Ocean in 1978, and of course Charles Lindbergh manned the first solo non-stop flight across the Atlantic in 1927, and the first manned aircraft to do it were the NC-1, 3, and 4 of the U.S. Navy in 1919. Nevertheless, though, the first hot air balloon to cross the Atlantic was named the Virgin Atlantic Flyer. Branson and Lindstrand's craft went down off the Scottish coast after traveling a distance of 2,900 miles from Sugarloaf Mountain, Maine, and it took 33 hours, which set a record for hot air balloon flights. And I think it's interesting that this didn't happen until 1987. So it didn't actually have anything to do with the advancing of technology, but rather just like making the trip really super hard and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, we already had planes.
Right, yeah. I always think those kinds of things are interesting with like, oh, here's the first flight across the Atlantic, the first solo flight, Amelia Earhart, the first woman to cross the Atlantic solo. But then like, this is just sort of an adventure that they wanted to have for the sake of having an adventure. Because like when you fly an airplane across the Atlantic in the 1930s, that's a big deal because that is proof that you can do it. And so other airplanes and eventually passenger airplanes will be able to do the same. This is just, we've had hot air balloons for, ages. And they were just like, let's do it. No one's done it. Why not? One other thing I did want to say I thought was kind of neat about this was just that they had done a helium balloon a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so they were just like, we already did the other kind of balloon. We got to pick a different balloon.
We got to pick a different balloon. I don't know if I would have enjoyed being in a hot air balloon for 33 hours.
Yeah. Like maybe the basket was much larger than a typical hot air balloon that we're used to.
It may have been.
I mean, we don't even want to be in an airplane for 33 hours.
That's fair.
And they have like champagne and food.
Not the airplanes I've been on, jeez.
Well, they have them, just not where I was sitting.
Yeah, just not for you.
Fair. Good point. Yeah.
I know they got them in there.
To be fair, not for me either. But yeah, I know they have them.
I didn't take that as you like just talking down to us there.
Oh no, me neither. I was just
not
like,
for you.
No, I don't get it either. I just know they have it.
They have it.
Right.
I've seen
it's
it.
in the plane that I'm on. I'm just not allowed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right. Well, fortunately, we're not on a plane or a hot air balloon. We're all on solid ground. So I think now is a perfect time. That's the only criteria to move on to our second question for the week. And this question comes to us from Daniel. If our skin had chlorophyll, How many calories could we replace in our diet by just staying outside? And I want to warn both of you. I did math.
Okay.
Oh, no.
It is full of many holes. It is way oversimplified, and some of it may be incorrect. But I did it. So
I think one of the things that is important to remember about photosynthesis is that it is very dependent on surface area. So, you look at a tree or really any plant, and the leaves themselves are broad and flat on most plants, or at least there are a lot of them. You look at pine trees, and they have many, many, many needles all spread out across the tree. Whereas a human doesn't have that much surface area. And that's a big problem.
that is the math that I did. I actually looked up and calculated the surface area of a human. And on average, I found human beings have basically 1.5 to 2 square meters of skin surface area. So I looked at how efficiently plants absorb sunlight. And so if we assume that 1 square meter of the area of a plant's leaf receives about 1,000 watts of sunlight for this is again oversimplification, but 12 hours, because it would only be when the sun is up. So I just split the day in half. We're looking at about 12,000 watt hours of sunlight. And then if you convert that to joules, that would be 12,000 watt hours converts to about 43 million joules. But here's the problem with that, though, because plants, the photosynthetic efficiency of plants is about 1 to 2%. So 43 million joules becomes 432,000 joules. 432,000 joules is essentially 103,000 calories, is what I've found. And that's good for plants because they don't move. That's also that's also assuming, again, a 12-hour sunlight day. Probably that's a lot. That's a very high estimate. But I tried to kind of simplify it, and looking at if human beings have about 1.5 to 2 square meters of skin, and if we just keep that 1,000 watts per square meter on a sunny day, and we assume we're using chlorophyll, so let's just assume that 1 to 2% efficiency here. And I calculated, so 12 hours is probably a lot. So 6 hours maybe of sunlight effectively.
Yeah, we get 6 hours of sunlight if we're lucky.
Yeah. So again, still a high estimate, but
yeah, we live in the Midwest. We get the weathers.
So we get the weather. So let's see. We've got there essentially a calorie is 4.184 joules. Is what it kind of boils down to. So let's see. Total energy from the sun for 1.5 square meters of skin. Which would give us about 9,000 watt hours, which would give us 32,400,000 joules. And so 1.5 efficiency, splitting the difference 1 to 2, that would give us about 486,000 joules, which I converted to 116,000 calories, approximately. I'm rounding. And that's like a 6-hour day. That's assuming we stand in the sunlight and do literally nothing else. And I'm not even saying we just stand still. That's assuming our body doesn't need to burn energy for anything else. So our circulatory system, our nervous system, breathing, right? So then I looked up, and Sierra's going to judge me here, but I had no idea how many calories we should eat in a typical day. I have no idea. So I'm looking up that it says here, adults can range approximately from an average daily calorie need is about 1,800 to 3,000.
Yep, that sounds right. Depending on, so my husband probably he's 6 feet, 2,600 to 2,800 versus I'm more like, if I do absolutely nothing, I'm around like 1,600. So it depends on, your size and whether you're a male or female and how much you move and stuff like that.
Okay. So that's kind of where the math kind of is failing for me. And that's not taking those. So basically what I'm really curious about is how many calories plants actually do get from sunlight, because that seems like a lot. We're looking at like hundreds of thousands here.
Yeah. And one of the things that is very interesting about photosynthesis is that it is also not the only thing that plants do.
Good point.
Because they also do regular cellular respiration, but they make more oxygen than is consumed in the cellular respiration process. So on the whole, they are putting out more oxygen, which I think is just really fascinating.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I did not really think that, because I thought when we talked about like vampires living only on blood, for example, like I think Jim was very quick to bring up like they would not get enough energy. They would not get enough nutrients from that.
Oh, right, right.
But I thought, well, plants don't have moving parts and they don't have like organs and stuff, but they are still doing other chemical processes. So
one really big thing that people have to do that plants really don't is to maintain a body temperature. And we burn a lot of calories keeping ourselves at approximately 98.6 degrees. And that's something that we see as being fairly different for us versus even just things like reptiles that use that are cold-blooded. They don't need to use nearly as many calories to keep themselves at roughly the correct temperature as we do, which, of course, with plants, they're just whatever temperature the outside is. They don't have any, difference in temperature. So when you talk about, not having to move or anything like that burns calories, but it's also, they don't have to do like 80% of the stuff we do.
Okay. There was just, I guess there was a lot of like passive things that we do that I was not accounting for.
Yeah.
They call that NEAT, which I'm not going to be able to remember what it stands for.
It's just neat.
Exercise. Yes, it's
neat. It's really interesting.
Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is like if you like itch your nose or like if you like adjust yourself in your chair or, stuff like that, that's all neat. And you burn calories from doing that, although it's very, very minimal. But that's what I would assume like plants would do.
I just got super self-conscious because as soon as you said readjust yourself in your chair, I was like, I was doing that.
And you burned calories, Derek.
Well, you burn calories. You burn more calories if you take a shower than if you take a bath because you're standing, right? It's like standing up is.
Oh, that's
I've never heard that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it is more effort to just stand still than it is to lie down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what was interesting was, so when I was doing research for this, I was looking up, like, I just Googled the question to start. And then they were like, well, you couldn't really survive because you wouldn't have enough calories because the body runs off of glucose. And I was like, okay, but what if we converted chlorophyll to glucose, like in a magical other world? Because then we could potentially run off of energy from the sun.
Well, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about is while we wouldn't be able to just straight up live off of photosynthesis, it would be a really nice little supplement to our dietary needs.
Fair.
Because if you could, eliminate the need for a certain amount of food or whatever from your day-to-day life, maybe at best it saves you some time. But I feel like there's a lot of different ways that this could benefit you just to have like that little bit of extra boost.
Yeah. What, obviously that's vitamin D, but what else could we get from that, micronutrient wise?
Well, so let me think, because boy, I have not thought about the Calvin cycle in a very long time. There's
a test right now.
Quick, let me just Google it real quick.
You didn't study? What?
Yeah.
Well, because I remember when I was in cell molecular biology, we had to memorize the Krebs cycle. I don't remember most of that either. But I could tell you about, like, there are certain vitamins that sort of split off from these things. So the Calvin cycle is the one that actually builds the glucose.
Okay.
So you would be manufacturing your own glucose, which is helpful, which is what you already said. But you're also getting a lot of ATP out of it. You're also getting some various other small things that are used in other metabolic pathways. Like, I forget what NADP specifically is, but a couple of these different molecules that I know show up in both the Krebs cycle and the Calvin cycle. And so, like, micronutrient wise, not much, but I'm thinking, like, in terms of not having to stop at like 2 p.m. to have a granola bar or
Right.
something. Or, at 7 p.m., instead of having like that sort of downward spiral towards the end of your night because you didn't drink the correct number of cups of coffee during your day.
You know what? It's like, because there's a lot of talk about electric cars now. But before we had the fully electric cars, we had hybrids, which just didn't need as much gas. So it'd be kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. That's always, I mean, that's what I want is a hybrid, because the electric cars aren't there yet. They're like getting better, but I, for my needs, where I frequently have to drive fairly long distances to visit folks, I think an electric car would not be something I would want, but a hybrid would be great. I would love that. But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is this would be like the hybrid model of a human, where you get just a little bit of kick from the sun, which saves you a little bit of time and a little bit of effort having to track down that mid-afternoon snack.
I like that. The hybrid model of a human. That's cool.
That immediately makes me think of like gene splicing, and now humans are half animals, though. That's what that sounds like to me.
I mean, we'd be gene splicing that we'd be half plants.
Half plant. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then not too far off then.
Herein lies a problem, which you sort of touched on, which is that we would have to be naked all the time.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And I don't think that humans are ready for that.
But,
don't they have certain areas?
But we could.
They do.
We could go back to the Adam and Eve fig leaf thing. And then that's photosynthetic too, right?
Yeah.
We just dress in all plant. Wait a minute. Could we make all of our clothes out of photosynthetic leaves?
Ooh.
And then they just like, I'm developing like some kind of premise for a sci-fi story. I don't know what it is yet.
I have an well, it's not unrelated, but I have a tangential thought to that. And that is, what if I don't know if this is possible, but if we made clothing that was somehow able to act as solar panels, and then you could use it to charge your phone all day.
You could use it to, you couldn't charge you, but like the devices you have on you.
Yeah, yeah. Eventually, when we get those fun brain implants, you could charge those up.
Yeah, those brain implants I'm definitely getting.
Mm-hmm.
You could plug a USB drive into the back of your head, and it's connected to your solar panel hat.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is most interesting about this question, is that I feel like it was a question that is attempting to solve the problem of food, which it would kind of do. But as Sierra pointed out, there are other things we get from our food that we would still require. So,
Sure.
vitamins and nutrients and minerals and stuff, because all you're really getting from photosynthesis is basically glucose, which we need, but we also need vitamin D, for instance.
But that's because we have the difference between animals and plants. We have organs and blood and like all sorts of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Plants got it made.
You don't have to work either.
I mean, it's so weird to think about plants being alive sometimes. Like, I know they are, and like it's not hard for me to be like, oh, that's a living creature. But it's also one of those things where it's like, it is such a different kind of life than what any animal has. They have, the bare basics of like any kind of communication system within their own body, and they don't move. I mean, not much. Like, some of them have some small movements they can do, but like they can't get up and walk away like an ant.
Right. I was thinking of, even to not even go as far as plants, like I think of animals that are not cephalized as being such a weird idea.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking about sponges actually, because I was like, they're not at all more like plants than animals. Like they are demonstrably not, but like visually and behaviorally, they're not that far removed. Mushrooms are the ones that are weird. Fungi are the weird ones to me because they digest. they don't photosynthesize at all. They just digest things and eat them.
Yeah,
and that's weird.
they're like plantimals.
Yeah.
Plantimals.
That's got to be a brand. I don't know.
Sounds like Danimals.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The yogurt.
Yeah.
Right.
I think this is a great question, and I do like it a lot. And I'm sad that we can't make it happen. I actually did see though. It was so it's from BBC Science Focus magazine. So the British folks,
Yeah.
And I guess they did do a little bit of math. If you stood around naked all day outside, it says you would generate less than 240 calories. Which it says this is a very British sentence, about 3 chocolate digestive biscuits worth. I don't know what a digestive biscuit is, but it sounded very British to me.
I think it's like a Biscoff cookie, but like not as sweet, and like it's not like a dessert, but I think it's kind of the same consistency of like a Biscoff.
Oh, interesting.
Why do they call it digestive? Is it medical?
I don't know.
Maybe it's for digestion. I don't know.
I would wager that it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it aids in your digestion.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like the thing you eat afterward to like top it all off. It probably doesn't actually aid in your digestion, but they probably named it that before they realized it wouldn't.
According to Google, yeah, they're supposed to help aid your digestion, but they don't. It's just like, yeah, it's exactly what you just described.
I got it in one.
Yep.
Wow.
So it's like a dessert thing that is just a dessert.
Yeah.
Okay.
They look not sweet. I thought they were going to be like sweet, but they look like a Ritz cracker.
I read they were semi-sweet.
Okay.
I didn't look them up, but yeah, these look like they look like it's a little bit like vanilla wafers.
Oh, yeah, but I like those.
Yeah. Because I didn't look them up until just now, but I kind of imagine them as looking like those, are they called Stroop waffles that you put on top of your coffee cup and it like heats them up? Yeah, that's what I kind of expected them to look like for some reason. These look way less appetizing.
I expected some
these don't look very good.
I expected a laxative pill, honestly. I thought it was.
Got to eat your dinner and then take the laxative pill.
And they just call it a digestive cookie to be like,
yeah,
because
it'll speed that digestion along. In fact, it might not even get to the digestion. It just might clean you out.
You eat this cookie, it'll clear you right out.
Yeah.
This cookie is the British equivalent of our Taco Bell. It just cleans you straight out.
Oh, jeez.
Get one of those digestive tacos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, though, back to the question, one of the things that I think is very interesting about it is that there is going to be a stark difference between folks who live at the equator or folks that live, at like the middle of Canada, for instance, or like even from the Pacific Northwest to the East Coast of the United States. All the various microclimates that you encounter across the entire planet are going to make a difference. So folks who live in Southern California might do very, very well with it, or at least they will do better than folks who live in Seattle, for instance.
Yeah.
Not even all that far removed.
I wonder so there's 2 different ways it could work. And I think it could just be we have chlorophyll in addition to just the rest of the way we live, in which case it would be easier to live in the equator. But if like we were photosynthetic instead of eating stuff, then it would be like we just couldn't live in places where there wasn't sun.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck in the Arctic Circle.
Well, yeah, then we're just not a nomadic species.
Yeah, that's true. and kind of sad when you think about it. In a lot of ways, plants are nomadic, but to a degree that is inhibited by their ability to survive.
Yeah.
Because, you see a lot of plants that do well in tropical climates, and there's nothing stopping them from leaving those tropical climates, but they can't because they can't live in a place that has seasons, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can plant an orange tree in our backyard here in the north, but it won't do well.
It won't do well. But there are some plants that, like, plants have dormancy, right? And some animals have something similar, like hibernation.
Yeah.
I don't know if photosynthetic humans could hibernate during the winter because of less sun. I don't know.
I mean, there's probably no reason that that would just be a thing that they would have evolved to do in the first place.
Right.
So now we're starting to get into, like, what would
evolution?
Well, not just that, but like if it was like this all along, how would humans be different? And then that really starts to spiral out of control, which is really fun to think about.
Those are fun to think about, but that's like vastly different. We're just a different species at that point.
Because I don't know about you guys, but I sort of imagine this as like a what if somebody came along and like genetically engineered us all of a sudden to make it nice.
That's what I was. I think that's probably more likely the spirit of the question, but I had to think of both options.
Yeah. In which case, it's also worth considering, if they did genetically engineer a person to be able to photosynthesize, could they make that process more efficient? And I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not, because plants are like the photosynthetic cells are just like packed full of chlorophyll, and there's really not a whole lot else they can do to make that process more efficient because of basically the chemical processes that it involves. And so if you found a way to make it more efficient, I feel like it would stop being that type of photosynthesis. It would be like a different chemical process altogether.
So it's almost like might not be as worth it as we think. Interesting.
It'd be a weird, complicated thing.
I mean, what we have now is probably also a weird, complicated thing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, but we don't have to think about it.
Yeah, we've got it figured out at this point.
Yeah. The Krebs cycle is very cool. The thing is, the Krebs cycle and the Calvin cycle are like roughly equivalent. They sort of do the exact opposite thing. But the only thing that you end up seeing is that because plants do so much photosynthesis, they do end up releasing a net of oxygen, but they do actually produce carbon dioxide through cellular respiration like we do. It's just sort of canceled out by the prolific amount of photosynthesis they do.
So what we have now may not be the most efficient method, but we don't have to think about it because it's what we've had all our lives. So it's basically the imperial system. That was my dumb joke.
I feel like that's not the worst thing I've heard.
It's like the imperial system, and now I hate it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to change.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about plant cells, which this doesn't have to be the case for animal cells if they, for genetically modifying things, but plant cells have cell walls. So they are very rigid relative to animal cells, which don't have cell walls. And so I don't think this would really affect the question in any way, but I think it's worth pointing out because, like I said earlier, plants are just a very different kind of life form. Even though, we do share a few genes in common, they're just really, really different in a lot of ways.
I don't know anything about plants, is what I've determined after this conversation.
Not a keen gardener, are you?
Not a keen gardener.
No, me either.
I'm actually looking at the diagram for the, it's called the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis, because there's also what they call the light-independent reaction, which they tend to happen at night because they don't need light. But it's interesting. I forgot how much the light-dependent reaction is similar to cellular respiration. It is a thing where they are taking hydrogen and making a gradient, and then the hydrogen comes back out through the ATP synthase molecule. This is starting to get into the weeds. I don't know. I'll stop if you want me to. It's just very interesting. There are so much like mirror images of each other that is fascinating to me.
I actually do find it really fascinating, and the only reason I'm gonna tell you to stop is because we're over an hour.
Oh, well then we probably should stop.
So it is not because what you're saying is not fascinating, but it is. We should probably wrap up.
This is for independent research for the listener. Go look up go look up the light dependent and light independent reactions of photosynthesis.
Yep.
There's your homework.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, there is plenty more we could say about actually both of these questions. We could ramble forever. But in the meantime, what I would like you to let us know this week is, why is a plant like a person?
I thought you were going to say, why is a plant like a writing desk? And I was going to be like, they're both wood.
You know what? It was a coin flip when I got to the end of the sentence, and I was like, whatever. But if you have any thoughts on that or anything else we talked about, you can email us at feedback@vaguelyscientific.com, or you can comment on our blog, or you can like us on Facebook, or you can tweet at vaguelysci. Is it still called tweeting? Is that a verb? Is that? I don't know. I don't understand.
I don't know. I wish he would have given a press conference about like the
verbiage.
The way we're supposed to talk about it.
I'm still
the
gonna call it
verbiage.
tweeting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like all the marketers in the room told him not to do that, and he just was like, nope.
Yeah.
We're just going to do it anyway.
Hey, Jim, where do we get all these wacky questions?
We get them from our listeners. So this person who's got us going in their ears right now, that's you. If you specifically have a question that needs to be answered in a vaguely scientific manner, please email us at questions@vaguelyscientific.com. If you want to get our episodes the minute that they're released, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and all the other great places that cool podcasts like to hang out. And subscribing and leaving feedback really helps us out, and so does telling your friends.
And you can ask your friends why a raven is like a writing desk, and if they don't know, you can say, listen to Vaguely Scientific to find out.
Yeah. Our vaguely musical intro is composed by Anthony Pizzelli, and don't forget to check out our merch store over at vaguelyscientific.threadless.com. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Derek, but I finally filled up my old show notes notebook.
You have, yeah.
Yeah, I posted a picture of it on Facebook like 5 years ago. It's got aliens on it. It's very old. It's very cute, but it's full. And so my new show notes notebook that I'm going to start using as of next episode is a vaguely scientific notebook from our Threadless store.
Nice.
I'm excited. It's actually very nice.
That's cool. So yeah, you can get your own vaguely scientific merch. We have a few different fun designs on there.
Yeah, and you don't even have to take show notes about our show. You could take show notes about whatever show you want.
You could write anything you wanted.
Yeah, get a writing desk.
I'm looking at this right now. I'm so interested now.
Wonderful. Here's your $20 for plugging this store.
Thank you.
So thank you to Sierra for being our guest this week.
Absolutely. What is this, the 5th time I've been on the show?
I don't even know.
It's good to have you back.
We're losing track.
You're a
at this
staple
point.
at this point. I don't.
Yeah. Love coming on here with you guys.
For Vaguely Scientific, I am Derek.
I'm Jim.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine. No, that just makes us laugh.
And I'm Sierra.
Now, let us sally forth on another quest fraught with danger.
Toodaloo.
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say like danger and writing desks.
And writing desks. And why are they similar?
And ravens.
And there's ravens everywhere. More sound effects to add in there.
My writing desk is filled with ravens. Who put all these ravens in this desk?
My writing desk is filled with ravens.